Hello, everyone, and welcome to Autism Stories, where we connect you with amazing people that are helping autistic adults and teens become more successful. I'm your host, Doug Bletcher, the founder of Autism Personal Coach. We all probably need laughter more than ever in our lives, and on this episode of Autism Stories, we talk with Matthew Kaiser about just that. Matthew will discuss how being a comedian has not only helped his life in so many ways, but can be so beneficial to many other autistic people. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
I wanted to start off by learning, where does your story in the autism community begin?
When I was first knowledgeable that I had autism, I was 35 years old, still a student at Autism University, and one day my mom ran across an article about something called Asperger's syndrome, and she, like I said, she read the article, and she's like, oh my goodness, this describes Matt almost perfectly. I really should send a copy of the article to him and also my dad. Once I read the article myself, I was like, well, the majority of all this sort of applies. So that was sort of, ever since then, I guess that you could say that was sort of a self-diagnosis for autism, and it was only just recently that I sort of got a more official diagnosis.
Finding what you're passionate about in life has been really important to many autistic people that I have spoken with on the podcast and through our coaching services. So in reading about you and doing research for this interview, it sounds like the same is true for you. So I'm wondering, what would you say are your passions?
Well, one of the passions that I have, of course, I've always, liked making people laugh, and comedy in general. I've probably studied up on just about every known, typical comedian, stand-up comedian, and almost every entertainer associated with comedy in some way. It was just something that I always wanted to do myself, and it took a while before I found a way to sort of hit my stride, if you will. It was like I always wanted, but I just couldn't find the right resources for a while until probably around the time I was at Autism University, really. And of course, the other passion I have is TV game shows. Just like with the comedy, I've watched almost every game show that's, been on the air, and almost all of them anyway. And I've been to tapings. I've been fortunate to email and actually talk on the phone with some people connected with game shows, made several friends connected to game shows. And, same is true for comedy. I know, not a lot of the established comedians, but I know a lot of people who are pretty much as passionate about it as I am.
Now, I look at comedy as something that can be extremely therapeutic. How do you think comedy has been helpful to you from a mental health perspective?
For me, it's just a way for me to feel really comfortable about being myself, because I feel like I'm more like myself when I'm doing comedy-related things, So it's just, when I'm making people laugh, inappropriate. It's a little, awkward for me, I guess. And it's just there are some times when it's a little bit difficult to rein it in. I think, it just makes me feel better about myself in general. When I'm doing, comedy stuff.
Now, you've participated in open mic nights doing stand-up comedy, and you put yourself out there, and you never know if you're going to get the response you're looking for or not. So for autistic people that might have an interest in doing an open mic night but feel intimidated by the idea, what's your advice to them?
Obviously, what you need to do is find out some places in the general area where you live where they do open mic comedies. Of course, now with virtually everything closed because of the pandemic, that's going to be pretty difficult to do. But, I'm not saying, obviously once the, pandemic thing is over, then, hopefully that would be a more doable thing, trying to find, but probably the best thing to do now is, while this is going on, is to videotape yourself telling jokes and putting stuff up on Facebook, YouTube. There's so much social media you can post your videos on. Hopefully you'll get people that will give you an honest response. And that's the best way. It's going to feel a little weird because you're not seeing or hearing how people react to what you're doing, but that could also work to your advantage, I guess, if you're not intimidated by what people might be thinking. Just go out there and hope it's funny. Hope that people will respond to what you're doing. The one thing you don't want to be too discouraged with is when your jokes don't hit, when your jokes don't get a laugh, because what gets a laugh in one location may not get a laugh somewhere else, and and the same is true. The same is true the other way around. What may not get a laugh, will probably it's one of my college friends, I think, has a great way of doing it. He calls it the 3-strike rule. Tell the same joke to 3 different audiences, and if that same joke doesn't register with 3 different audiences, throw it out. It's not worth. It's not worth it.
When you're doing stand-up, what are some of the topics you discuss on stage?
I like to do random things. I do joke about autism, of course, but it took a while for me, like I said, that's one of the things of the open mic. It took a while for me to find the material that works. Because there were several jokes that I had in a routine that, using the 3-strike rule, I eventually mixed all together. And it took a full year, really, to have a decent routine about autism. Because in the beginning, it kind of sounded like an autism lecture with jokes thrown in. And I was trying to steer it away from that. I didn't want it to sound like a lecture with jokes thrown in. And then I had a problem with one of the people that used to book comedians. He didn't want to book me, because of the autism. It was really dumb, but he just didn't think I would work out because of that. And so that kind of led me to think, gee, I wonder if I should joke about people's perception of people with autism. That might be a really good angle. And once that worked, I just knew how to tackle jokes about autism. And let's see. And before Dimitri Martin even came along, I had like drawings of things that I interpreted in different ways. And like I did a routine. I haven't done it for a while, but I did a routine about punctuation. And as I thought, punctuation, like periods and commas and whatnot, look like different things. And so I was trying to, do like an interpretation of what I thought each punctuation mark looked like. Like, for example, a question mark upside down kind of looks like a pregnant person, and that kind of thing. And so I thought, okay, what if I turn it this way? What does it look like? What if I turn it that way? What does it look like? And I did that with all punctuation work. And kept what worked and threw out what didn't work. But, a lot of it, random observations. I do, I like to do different things, one-liners. And I've also sent to this class I took at Towson, which I'm sure, I'm just going to say one of these questions, I'm sure I can weave that story in a little bit better. I got to learn how to do mime and clowning and improvisation, stand-up, and all different forms of comedy. I think that's a good way to be successful in comedy is to be able to know and do so many different forms.
Now, I'm always so intrigued by the process of things. So what was your process in developing your stand-up act?
Sometimes when just to give you another method that I use. Okay, well, I'll talk about one of my clown routines that just to sort of give you a process there and, answer the question differently. I once did a routine where I was a duck hunter hunting to the audience an invisible duck. And so one of the things I had to think of was what would make a good boat. And so I found a real large umbrella would make a really good boat. And I was trying to think of other things like how can I create the illusion that this duck exists. And so I got a friend that sort of, quacked like a duck and other stuff. It was just fun. And I thought, well, what could I use as a gun, because I didn't want to carry around a prop gun because, the school, obviously, the school would be a little bit skittish about me carrying around a prop gun around the building because, we don't want people, they're like, hey, what if somebody thinks it's real? What if, blah, blah, blah. So I was trying to think of, I was brainstorming on what would make it, what looks like a gun, but would not be mistaken for a gun. So immediately I thought of a T-square, because I thought a T-square looked enough like a gun for my purposes. And I was also trying to think of different ways to shoot to attract the duck. So I had a rubber ducky, and I also had a paper towel I used sort of like a pea shooter, it blow into one end, and a ping pong ball would pop out the other end. And I was shown by my teacher how to make it look like, because the first two balls you spit out the ball, but you don't spit it out of your mouth. What you really do is that you release the ball from your hand. You cup the ball in your hands, and then when you release your hands from your mouth, it looks like you're spitting it out of your mouth. So.
Now, not only do you perform stand-up comedy, but you also teach comedy to autistic people. How did that come about?
It was just something I always thought it would be a great time to teach. When I first started at college, UC, I kind of wanted to be a theater teacher. I wanted to teach people how to act and perform. And, with some various obstacles, it was just something that I never could make a reality. And then I started taking techniques in comedy at Autism University, and through this wonderful guy named Tommy, I learned, all various, as I said before, various aspects of comedy: is stand-up, the improv, the clowning, and the various forms of comedy. And at that time, I was doing a sort of like a clown duo routine with this called Outside the Box with this wonderful lady named Amanda. And we were trying to find a place to do. We wanted to rehearse our routine, and we were having trouble finding a rehearsal spot. So Tommy said, Cal University has an autism program. You really should talk to them. Maybe they could provide you with a space to do, your rehearsals. And I said, okay. And then I thought, hey, wait a minute. Why don't I just take Tommy's suggestion and turn it into something that could become something, I thought maybe I should take my idea of teaching, I thought maybe I should inquire them about teaching a comedy workshop based on a lot of other stuff that I learned from Tommy. And so I met with the lady that was in charge of that autism program at the time, Rhonda, and Rhonda loved the idea, and it took a while to set up, but I did eventually have a job teaching various forms of comedy to people, not just people on the autism spectrum, but students that were there to work with people on the autism spectrum that were not necessarily on the spectrum themselves, but they were there to learn how to work with people with autism. And most of the students just had a ball with the class. It was a wonderful, it was just a wonderful experience I had consistently for 4.5 years. And I picked up a couple other areas of also worked on workshops, itinerants in Baltimore and Howard County Parks. And now I'm waiting for the pandemic to be over so I can pursue 2 other lucrative opportunities to do workshops.
I think some of the most creative people I've met are autistic people. And I'm wondering, how do you go about bringing out their creativity through your comedy workshops?
You have to observe how they act, throughout the class. Pick up on what they seem to enjoy, something that they seem to excel at. There's this one lady who I really couldn't get to kind of in sync with each other, and she is smiling and having a wonderful time. And I thought, aha, I need to come up with something for her where she has an opportunity to dance and be funny. So I sort of came up with this idea to take classic comedy scenes and have everyone do their own interpretation of that same scene. So there's a classic I Love Lucy episode where Lucy and Ethel are wearing the same dress. And they have to do a musical number together, and heaven forbid they are wearing the same dress. So they are on stage with the same dress, which has all of these decals, other accessories, attached to the dress. So as they sing the song, they are gradually ripping off pieces of each other's dress to make them look different. And of course, it kind of builds from there, where they're practically almost tearing the entire dress. It gets to the point where they're almost tearing the entire dress off of each other. And so this girl and the student did their version of the same routine, and it just works very, very well. It's just a great way for this girl to showcase some comedic talent and have fun with it. That was just a great thing. And I'll just tell you one more. There are several, but I don't know how much time you have. But one more, there was a guy in my class who English was basically a second language for him. He came from Israel. And one day he approaches me and says, "Hey, Matt, I have something I want to show you." And I said, "Can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it?" And there were so many different things that he used to do in that class. I said, "I can't promise you anything. I have a lot in his class I want to cover today." But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, because, like I said, one of the things about him was that during the course of the class, I guess because English was a second language to him, he didn't always understand what we were doing. And we had to keep constantly re-explaining to him, or trying to explain the way that he understood, what we were doing and everything. And some of his mistakes were kind of funny, but, it was like, you still had to, make sure that he knew what we were doing. And so I'm thinking this routine is probably not going to make much sense to me at all. And what he wanted to do was reenact the scene from the cartoon, The Brave Little Toaster. And I'm in the middle of class. There's so much, many of the things that you just, "When can I do my routine? When can I do my routine?" And then finally it says, "Okay, let's hear your routine." And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is probably not the, I'm probably gonna regret this. But he gets up there, and suddenly he just falls right in the place, and he is perfectly reciting, this whole scene, and he's just so animated and so into it. And it's like before he wasn't making much sense, and now suddenly he was making sense, and just, really funny, and he was so funny and so concise and so much in focus, it just blew me away. And I was, was stunned. I said, that was really, really good. And I really want, the last class of all my classes was always a showcase, and I always showcased everything that we've done, all the best stuff that we've done in the class. That's one of the other great things about that class, is the showcase at the end. So
thinking about comedy and your future involved in it, where do you see, or where would you like for things to go moving into the future?
I would like to do more workshops, and I would probably should and sort of am doing is trying to find a way to do these same things online where people can sort of be in the comforts of their own home. But who knows how long it's going to be before these places open back up and people can feel comfortable being around each other again. And so I would like to teach more workshops. I would also like to do my own videos and showcase my own talent. I guess this would be a good time for me to plug some areas where you can see my work. You can go to www.matt-kaiser.com. That's one of the places you can go, and you can see my work. Like, you can see my comedy work. You can see some footage from workshops I've done. I'm also working on a way to do videos as a Facebook page that's simply called Kaiser Comedy Workshop. And hopefully in the very near future, I'm going to have some videos of my own stuff there and trying to encourage people to be part of these workshops, whether they're online or somewhere else. Hopefully some opportunities will open up for me to perform in public places. There's a place in D.C. called the Clown Cabaret, which is like an open mic for clowning routines. And I'm waiting for them. Obviously, they have to wait through it too. Hopefully, they'll be up and running again, so I can do stuff with them. But and I should also say the other two workshops that I'm hoping I may be doing a workshop for Anne Arundel Community College, and I'm also working on doing a comedy workshop for a local organization called Howard County Art Council. And one of the other things about comedy was, you mentioned about being therapeutic. There's only so much time, there's only so long I can go without doing comedy-related things before I feel like, if I stop doing comedy for too long a period of time, I feel like I might go insane. So, it's like something that's waiting to come out.
Well, Matthew, I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much for making time and joining us today.
All right, well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for listening, and a special thanks to Matthew for the conversation. Modern life can certainly be challenging for anyone. However, when you're autistic, the world is designed with your unique traits in mind, and everyday demands can feel insurmountable. At Autism Personal Coach, we celebrate neurodiversity by empowering adults and teens to be the best version of their authentic self and to become whatever they want to be. If that's becoming a comedian, we can support you in that journey. On the next episode of Autism Stories, we will talk about the experiences of non-binary autistic people. Talk to you then.
Social skill issues, verbal and nonverbal, repetitive behavior, all signs of ASD, easily angered, easily confused, hard to comprehend. stare at us like we are fools, getting real nervous, talking a lot, getting real fidgety. We need some distractions. Who am I? I'm a human too. I'm just like you with ASD. Who am I? I'm a human too. I'm just like you.